My fellow Ambazonians, all man a place day, shake shake day. My fellow people, I wanted to come and have a light modern conversation with all of you as we continue on. My fellow Ambazonians, all man a place day, shake shake day. My fellow people, I wanted to come and have a light modern conversation with all of you as we continue on this very difficult journey to establish for ourselves a homeland free of the tyranny of Cameroon. I'm very grateful that for the past 7 years, for some of you, you've remained absolutely committed and hopeful despite the difficulties that you are facing on a daily basis. I send my best wishes to our citizens in the homeland and to thank you all for your patience and your resilience. It is going to require more from you for us to be free. I know most of you are Christians and you are aware how difficult it is to make it to heaven. That is how difficult it is to rid yourself of a pest that has lived on your blood for so long. Our struggle for freedom is going to be very difficult. Make no mistake about this. More difficult days are ahead of us because as the enemy loses control, it adopts different methods of revenge and anger that translate into more pain on our people. This is how it has worked all over the world. During the struggle by East Timor for its independence, the highest amount of people died at the verge of the departure of Indonesia when the United Nations was even there. During Kagame's struggle in Rwanda, more people died under UN auspices during the genocide. So we are going to face a lot more difficult days. And the temptation for many is to look at the difficulties we face today and begin to ask the question if the journey ahead is worth it. They begin to contemplate an outcome which is very certain. The enemy will infiltrate you to increase your doubt and to tell you that, you see, these people who claim to be fighting for freedom, they are the ones kidnapping you, they are the ones extorting you, they are the ones harassing you. Without them, we will not burn your villages. Without them, we will not burn your homes. It is very easy to believe those kinds of narratives, especially under difficult circumstances. But the question you have to ask yourself is, before these people carried up arms to defend and liberate, were we at peace with Cameroon? Were we not having what they call kale kale? Didn't we have checkpoints all over with their thugs extorting monies from us. Before our forces picked up arms, were we not having constant harassment? Were we not having bad roads, erected 4 walls in the name of educational institutions that produce nothing beneficial to our society other than liabilities? And so you must always put the moment in context. It is not because of the presence of the resistance that we are going through pain. It is because of the presence of the occupation that necessitated the resistance. Enemies of freedom, enemies of our independence, enemies of our right to exist will point to your difficulties of the last 7 years and forget about the difficulties of the last 55 years. Imposed because another country came into ours, took it over, and established conditions that made life nearly impossible. But all what you are experiencing is not by accident. Cameroon has prepared this moment for us all. It has prepared this moment carefully. Don't think when Cameroon appoints its citizens to become our DOs, our SDOs and governor, it's a random. It's simply because it doesn't find enough Ambazonians to put in those positions. It has strategically placed these people in these positions to carry out activities within Ambazonia that serves Cameroon, that will make it impossible one day when you rise up in resistance for us to build a kind of cohesion amongst us that is possible for us to end their tyranny in the shortest time possible. These DOs, governors, and thousands of elites whom they recruited, integrated them within the Cameroon psychological mindset and the political system, were deliberately chosen to be used at any time when you begin to question the legitimacy of their presence. They will begin to point at our own that, oh, why are you angry? We have Diongute, who is an Ambazonian. We have Peter Mafani Musonge, who is an Ambazonian. Cameroon has prepared this moment for a long period of time. It has made access to opportunities mostly through these recruited elites that it integrated within the system. So sometimes to be able to move into Cameroon, you need the support of the scheme that they have established. You need the support of these elites to facilitate your movement, to facilitate you having opportunities, to facilitate you making documents, to facilitate you having what you need. The elites became your window to opportunities, and they became your demigod. We must understand that the elites are the beneficiaries of this occupation, not Ambazonians. The Regina Mundis, when we picked her up, she had 1,000 sympathizers within Ambazonia. Why? Because they are the people who have indirectly benefited from her treacherous acts since the 90s. She became the face of the occupier. She became the instrument through which the occupier could reach out to us, provide bags of rice, oil, Maggi, salt. It's like the United States using USAID as a soft power mechanism to pacify countries. Countries have used such instruments as at the forefront for economic expansion, for political control. They use the church as such an instrument also. They use missionaries as such an instrument. In Ambazonia, they use enablers. You realize that they disoriented our chieftaincies, our fondoms. In certain places, they created new ones and made sure their appointment is dependent on their loyalty rather than to their constituency, but to Yaoundé. They were preparing the moment when you rise up, they will use these people to serve their interests. And so every day you get up, and the butchers carrying assault rifles in your neighborhood, and the propagandists on different radios, TVs, and the facilitators of colonialism coming periodically with bags of rice, the ones who use the church as a platform to propagate the enemy's agenda. You must remind yourself this has been prepared for a very long period of time. Their sole aim is their own survival. It's like the house slave. As Malcolm X once said, when the master is sick, the house slave says, "We are sick," and prays for the master to get well. While the field slave, when the master is sick, prays so hard that the master dies. All of these puppets who are using our moments of difficulties to rationalize the necessity of the occupation are not doing it for your own interests. They are serving themselves, and they are serving Cameroon. None of them has shouted at the top of their voices for the more than 3,500 Ambazonians detained by Cameroon to be released. They would prefer, some of them would prefer to buy food and send to these prisoners as charity, to have good names. They are not bold enough to stand publicly and require Yaoundé to release these prisoners. They blame the massacre in Babanki on the arrest of traitors. They blame the massacre in Pinyin, in Santa. They blame the burning down of Kwakwa and the murder of Mami Api. They blame the decapitation of Samsoya to those who have risen up in resistance to stop the massacre that has been happening for the past 55 years. You must know who your enemies are. You must know them by their names. You must identify them by the narratives they propagate. They call for peace all the time. They never call for justice. They want the re-establishment of the negative peace that has existed since you were born. The kind of peace where you were beggars, they were masters. The kind of peace where they come to your villages periodically with bags of rice and tins of oil, and you dance for them. The kind of peace where they organize elections where they never lose. The kind of peace where your roads become death traps. The kind of peace where they set up roadblocks, harass you, extort you, and you cannot fight back. The kind of peace where just a few of them, through their networks of elites and opportunists, could have a seat on the table of your murderers. That's the kind of condition they want in Ambazonia. The perpetuation of a negative peace that has given you nothing, that has caused thousands of your children to escape the homeland, that has dismantled the social cohesion of our society, that has separated families and kept children delinquent. They want the kind of negative peace where the flag of a foreign country flies over your own. You sing their anthem, celebrate your days of enslavement. That's what they're asking of you. They're telling you that the times are so difficult that if you surrender, if you give up, you are going to have that kind of negative peace where you remain as a slave without any hope. My job is to let you know back to sender. Ambazonia has risen. It will fall no more. We will endure. We will sacrifice. We will persevere. And we will triumph over the evil that found its way through nefarious means in our homeland more than 60 years ago. My fellow Ambazonians, happy Independence Day to Canada. 156 years ago, the different nations of Canada came together to sign what they call the Canada Act, establishing what was formerly called the Dominion of Canada. And on 1st July 1982, the Constitutional Act was signed that changed the name from the Dominion of Canada to the Canada Day, which is celebrated every 1st July, normally as the Day of Canadian Independence. I wish them well, and we hope that the enemies of our freedom that have received unfettered support and access to such democracies understand that the permanent condition which they thought they had established in Ambazonia for their own interests would be dismantled. Fellow countrymen and women, coincidentally, 1st July is also the day that the Ambazonia Liberation Freedom Tax has come into force. I just finished a meeting with top commanders before getting into this broadcast, and we were talking a lot about the implementation. We were exchanging ideas on how effective we can get this tax law enforced in a way that can help us achieve all the things we have outlined in the past few days. The relationship between taxation and accountability is very linear. It's a linear process. Those who pay their taxes expect the payment to be reflected in some form of development or in the things that those who've imposed the taxes have promised to deliver. I know we have spoken a lot about this tax, and I know you've had a lot of experiences in the past 7 years where people came with big promises, asked for your support, and you feel like they did not deliver. In discussing this tax, we factored that in. We factored that particular sentiment, feeling of having been robbed, having been duped. That we understand. It's a serious issue. Corruption is a pandemic. It accounts for more death than civil wars. And those who fight for freedom must be free from corruption, whether it's political or financial. That's a hallmark of freedom fighters. Freedom fighters rise from the ashes of intricate systems of corruption, curtailment, and deprivation, with a different view of the kind of society that they want people to live in. And it will be an overstatement or understatement to state that the freedom fighters tend to be unaccountable, smacks of bad faith and repudiation that must come immediately. What I can say with utmost certainty, and it's not a promise, is based on the practices of my leadership and the institution that I lead, that we will be accountable. And the greatest accountability that you are going to find or you're going to get will be in the things that we promise to deliver. This is not simply a taxation policy designed to recoup money from our population. It's a taxation policy designed to address some of the limitations of our resistance that has negatively affected our population. Kidnapping for ransom, harassment through unnecessary roadblocks, extortions, families being unable to bury their dead in peace. I'm very much convinced that a well-disciplined, a well-equipped and resourced force is not only going to be in a position to defend the territorial integrity of Ambazonia, but to exercise also policing duties to make sure that there is law and order, that people live in peace without undue harassment. This is something we are going to achieve. You have to recall that a few years ago, I set up the anti-kidnapping team to make sure that we can, in the phase of fighting for our freedom, we can also react to some of the negative feelings that our people have with respect to the conduct of some of our forces and opportunities within our society. And we have shown many times by video the arrests of kidnappers, of extortionists, and we are also aware that the regime of occupation has used drugs, popularly known as Kanu, as a way of intoxicating our young adults, and I'll address that when I talk about their policy of genocide. And drugs has been a major influence in the attitude of these young arsonists on our streets. We see that out here. It's not only in areas of war. We find in societies ravaged by drugs, those who take drugs always need money to buy the drugs because they are dependent on the drugs. Their sanity is based on the continuous intake of those drugs. And taking those drugs, they cannot also work They cannot also do the normal things that you and myself will do to mobilize resources. And the easiest way would be to go on stealing, harassment, and some rogue forces without command and control, and even in some with command and control, have also engaged in this through the influence of the occupation forces, because they've used drugs to lure some fighters, and then they've arrested them and they've murdered them. And because they are soldiers who've been used to arms, they have been able to use their rifles and undertake missions of harassment, extortion, stealing people's phones, extorting people and collecting monies, with the easy access now of the Momo, where you can simply just send monies instantly. It has made their job easier. We have engaged the root cause, not only the symptoms, because the symptoms is what manifests, which is the harassment, the extortion. But what is the root cause? Is the intake of drugs. It's also the lack of command and control within forces that are not well resourced. We have been arresting these drug dealers, these suppliers. We have broken many chains of command in the supply chain of these individuals. Just when we were leaving the meeting, the Supreme General was talking about some forces who escaped from barracks that exercise command and control, that discipline soldiers, and they prefer to go into other barracks where there is virtually no command and control, and they can do what they want. They can sit in barracks and establish TikTok accounts. They are on Facebook exposing other forces. This is what we just addressed before I came in here, and we all agreed that sometimes these root causes can be accounted for by the absence of sustainable resources that can keep the attitude of these forces in check. Because if there is a small compensation scheme for forces, if there is a support scheme that can take care of family of forces, that can take care of widows of fallen forces, orphans of fallen forces, it will not eliminate completely these vices, but it will keep them in check in a controllable manner. So this freedom tax is not simply something that we should look at it from the perspective of money. It is far bigger than that. And I would ask our people to embrace this. We are working very hard. We are conscious of what is happening in the four corners of Ambazonia. We are conscious of what people are talking about on dinner tables, around firesides, burning corns and eating mangoes, drinking palm wine. We know what they are talking about. You believe, the resistance has reduced. You believe that people are harassed a lot. This is the normal path of wars, of liberation. At the beginning of every resistance, there is the phase of uprising. Everybody, murderers, looters, the bad, the good, the ugly, all find an opportunity to express themselves, and they all rise up. They call it popular resistance, popular uprising. Everyone, those who are angry about A, those who are not happy about C, those who think this should happen or that should happen, they all rise up, and you have this sense of popular resistance. And then you move from that period to that of a revolution. That is when leaders have identified specific areas that they can focus in to effect change, to dismantle an existing system. They also change their tactics. It becomes less popular excitement to that of combination of popular excitement and targeted actions against occupiers. And during period of revolutions, many people become scared because it becomes more deadly. The system reacts with more violence. People are taken into jail, those who escape into exile. Some escape into the bushes to form cells of resistance. That euphoria, that excitement dips. The cells of resistance in the bushes begin to organize themselves, attack the enemy. The enemy fights and burns down homes to frighten you so that you cannot give them shelter. He eliminates its primary source of intelligence, which is the population. From the period of revolution, you enter into the real period of liberation, where the cells of resistance begin to build bigger, they control places, they have uniforms, they have different forms of types of ammunition. That's when you start being confused. You start, oh, that period of excitement is no longer there. It's like you marry your wife and the first 6 months is Hail Mary. You're happy. Everybody's excited. Neighbors are talking about it. Everyone is happy about what is going on in your life. And then you start having kids. You don't sleep at night. You need to pay, you need to get a bigger house. You need to pay the rent. It's no longer the period of excitement. It's serious. You have to buy books for kids. You have to take care of father-in-law, mother-in-law. Your life as a human being is a reflection of the life cycle of a liberation struggle. As you grow mature, some of the kids, they leave the house. The compound become a bit less populated, less excitement. You grow older. But the one thing you never lose is to leave your independent home and return back to the house of your father. The name given to those kind of people is called losers. So we are at that stage where you will feel less excitement, where you will feel less pomp and pageantry. The enemy will come in and say, this thing is over. You need to come back to your former jail and accept your state of servitude and accept to be a slave. It's better than being in a situation of confusion and hopelessness. Only cowards return back to their vomit after they have walked this far. And I think we are at a place where what we have offered Ambazonians is their humanity. The enemy cannot simply exact impunity without getting a pushback. As you saw in Boyo, with General Golan striking down 3 of enemy forces. As you saw in Bui with General Vulture holding the enemy at bay. As you saw in Bonge Road with Sokadev and the ADF striking down 4 of the enemy thugs. The greatest thing you can ever have as a former slave is having the opportunity to impose some level of pain on your captor. Never give up that opportunity to return back to servitude, where every aspect that you can have to resist that period, that's enslavement, is surrendered to the enemy. So you can be rest assured that you are on the right path. All struggles we have studied have been like ours, and ours is even in the best of positions. The only struggle you can know without international backing that achieved contenderhood in less than 10 years, that is able to get the enemy state to commit to negotiation in less than 10 years, that is able to get international community, different parliaments, foreign ministers to talk about a people that in the past 10 years perceivably never existed. It's a huge achievement, and that has only been possible thanks to the resistance and defiance that you've shown on Mondays. Our forces showed in Kondengi with their first lockdown, and our soldiers are showing on a daily basis, and leadership is continuously finding innovative ways of fueling the resistance and ensuring that during the period of resistance, we can still have our educational institutions taking care of our children, providing knowledge, access to opportunities, and ensuring that in areas of static and dynamic control, we have our medical institutions being able to take care of our sick and the wounded soldiers. We are doing a lot to make sure that every one of you can pay your freedom tax. It's 10,000 for men a year, 5,000 for women. As I said the other day, and I quoted the Bible. You see, who is that parent? You know, when your child asks for an opportunity and you give them something else. The reason we are putting this amount is also your access to other opportunities. Because you are aware that when you drive through Amba, sometimes you meet roadblocks and soldiers are asking for monies from our population. Your liberation tax, you paid it. That's enough. You want to bury your dead, except they are enablers, which we will ban. And soldiers reach out, paid our liberation freedom tax. That's enough. If we provide enough funds to arm our forces, we have the military to engage in liberation and policing. We eliminate kidnapping for ransom. If you are kidnapped, we will invade that area with a rapid reaction force. In Bui, 2 weeks ago, the ADF set up a rapid reaction force. This was not against kidnapping. This was to bring order in barracks where there are issues. Every barrack of the ADF, 7 of them, will contribute into that force. And so we will eliminate kidnapping for ransom. With a stronger force, you can be rest assured that the enemy cannot simply drive into other places and burn them down. Because if you have 300 well-armed men, it will be impossible. We have blocked the Alabukam and the Mbengui, the Bamenda Mbengui road through Alabukam. Why can the enemy not open it? It hasn't got the power. 2 days ago, we were watching. They were trying to penetrate, and our forces were ready, and they were shooting as though hell has broken loose because they were scared to hell. Our forces are in charge. They are in charge. But to make them effective and to take out the enemy, we need to provide them more materials. We need to have in every barrack 50,000 bullets. We need to have well-armed men who don't shoot and retreat because their magazines have gotten empty. The enemy will run away. And I am definitely certain that if you make your widow's mite in terms of this tax, it will take the forces to a place where they will protect you, eliminate the threat on you, whether from the internal enemy or the external enemy. We are also aware that you have been making donations here, contributions here and there. This tax law narrows down all of those things into one payment. And as I said the other day, I am from Mezam, and I am asking the people of Mezam to help me mobilize 1 billion. Bamenda alone has 540,000 people. If 100,000 pay their liberation freedom tax of 10,000, that's 1 billion. There are other places that have smaller populations. We are going to support them, like Boyo. We need to support Boyo from Mezam. We even need to support places like Bui. Momo can take care of itself. Manyu can take care of itself. We need to support Lebialem. 100,000 people in Mezam can provide me with what will be required to extend our border from Kombo right up into Mbuda. There are many ways we will be using to ensure that you can pay your tax. There will be an online system. There are receipt booklets that will be issued to different barracks. They will be using different networks which they have established to make sure that people can pay their taxes. And we will provide regular updates on what is going on. And there is also a system of penalty if you don't pay your taxes. If you cannot pay all at once, you can pay installmentally. We will encourage people to pay all at once. But if you can't, you would explain to our relevant authorities, either through the ADLA or our various barracks, that you cannot pay all. There will be a system of verification. We know there will be fraudsters who always exploit good ventures, as we found those who exploited our war of liberation for their own political agenda to extort you. We have been discussing about all of those things. And I want to note here with great excitement that in certain places, people are excited, holding their receipts as their passport to freedom. I was narrated a story where one of our mothers who had paid her tax arrived at La Republique checkpoint, and he thought it was an Ambazonian checkpoint, and removed her tax receipt and said, "I paid my tax." And the La Republique Turk said, "No, that's for the others. Give our own." So there is an army on the ground. There is an administration on the ground under our forces. And don't give up on your children. Don't believe on the enemy, the murderers of our people. Believe in your own, in the boys, in the girls that are carrying rifles in the defense of our homeland. We have drafted this tax law. I know people have been asking about the source of authority. It has also been an international question, the source of legitimacy. Who is Dr. CHO AYABA? Who has elected him? What is the A-Gov-C? Who gave you the mandate? and I understand those questions are legitimate questions. You know, nobody gave General Efang the mandate to put his life on the line for the defense of the land. Nobody gave General Ivo, General Nyi, Golang, Vulture, Mad Dog, Kapo, No Mercy. Nobody gave these brave men the mandate through any established due process of direct or indirect consent. But there comes a time when the source of legitimacy is functional in nature. When you take a responsibility at a time of dire need to defend the general interests of the people. Your source of legitimacy is in the act, not for yourself, but for the general good. In most situations where laws are drafted, the source of authority, if there are secondary laws, is the Constitution. Reference is given to the Constitution. Ambazonia has not established a particular constitution through which it can derive a source of authority to enact secondary legislation. The 1954 Southern Cameroon's Order in Council, the 1954 ones we use in the House of Eastern House of Assembly, all the different laws that have existed, whether be they domestic, customary, or international, have become also the source of authority, because whether it's the Versailles Treaty that gave rise to the League of the mandate system, or it's the United Nations Charter that also gave rise to the issue of the trusteeship, rooted in Article 76B, providing the United Kingdom the power of a trustee. These are all sources of authority, whether it's Resolution 1608 or previous or subsequent resolutions after that. Ambazonians have derived a source of authority in crafting laws from these various outdated, existing, transiting sources of authority that has made the presence of Ambazonia possible as a people, as a state, with respect to the Milner-Simon Agreement of 1919 with the border. But the most important one is the functionality aspect, that we are able, on behalf of our people and our nation, to take responsibility in their defense and in their freedom. That becomes a source of authority that we have in drafting secondary legislation that can require our people to act and conduct themselves in a particular way. So is this liberation tax freedom law. But the most important aspect of this law is how accountable the law providers are. I've spoken about that earlier on. You can be rest assured that we will be accountable. Don't only trust in my word, but as the Vice President said the day we launched this, the institutions have been put in place to ensure checks and balances, and that the rules and regulations governing the leadership can hold us also accountable. And regular communication, character of those that speak for you, lead you, will be a testament of what they can do. My fellow Ambazonians, I am always very delighted to have this conversation with you. A few days ago, the Al Jazeera published a note on rape being used by La Republic forces on Ambazonians. We have known that rape has been deployed as a weapon of war. It is not in the past 7 years. We have documented evidences in the past 30 years where systematic rape has taken place in student hostels, in villages. La Republique has decided, first, you must understand that rape is an assault to human dignity. It robs you of your dignity. It violates you of your privacy. It is a humiliating aspect. One of the principal reasons for Scottish resistance against England has been a law that had been put in place by England, that when a Scot gets married, the first child of that family will be born from an English man, because that was used to assert English authority over Scotland and to make sure that the population of Scotland is in a way that reflects English interests. La Republique has denigrated us to the extent where we were ashamed of our names. We were basically ashamed of our names. If they call you Namondo, you feel a bit really bad. Apart from what La Republique has done, those are colonial, what I call hangovers from colonialism, where you only see yourself as important in the image of your enslaver. If they call you Ch, no, you feel bad about it. You want to be called Roger. You want to name your kids using the names of their heroes. Amazonia has no heroes. All heroes are either dead or in jail. And make you to hate your own heroes. And so La Republique has used all methods to make you to be ashamed of yourselves. That you come from Alabukam, no, I'm from Bamenda. That you come from Pingin, you are ashamed. When was the last time before this war that you heard of Kwakwa, if you were not from Meme State? Only you can make your own names trendy. Only you, by your dogged determination, by your belief in yourself, by your belief in your past, your present, and being able to shape your future, can you turn Alabukam from some place where you were ashamed of to an iconic place of resistance today. Before the resistance, Soweto was a ghetto. Rap stars in the United States have turned suburbs, have turned ghettos into renowned places where people want to visit. Only you can make the difference. Only you can bring respectability to your neighborhood, to your names, to your dignity, to your identity. The enemy will do everything, including using rape, to rob you of your dignity. They make you to have children without fathers, and you will be delighted to name those children after them when they are long gone. You go into communities, 10% of the names are foreign, because the enemy has deliberately imposed conditions that make you ashamed of your own identity. This resistance is not simply about having independence. It's about liberating our mindset, a kind of mindset that robs us of our dignity, of our being, of a belief in ourselves. You go around here in Norway, one of the richest persons are farmers. The richest persons are business people. But down there, you need to be so broke to end up to being a farmer. As I explained the last time, your car has a problem here, only to visit the mechanic. It's a lot of money. If you want to do your hair as a lady out here, it's not cheap. If you want to do a haircut, it's not cheap. But those are things that within our society, the enemy has created a condition where everyone trying to earn a living has been classified either being a master, working for the enemy, wearing 3 pairs of suit, or being a slave, trying to toil in the woods or plow the fields to feed the population. AMBAZONIA will reverse that trend, will give you back your dignity, to believe in yourself, in what you do, and take pride in your profession, take pride in your abilities. And for us to speed up that day, we need to reset. We need to mobilize all what we have, human and material resources, to build stronger barracks, expand our community schools, establish community-owned hospitals, where every institution within the community, you are a shareholder. You are not only a contributor, but you are also a beneficiary. We want to bring back self-governance within AMBAZONIA. And it begins with taking ownership today. In the coming weeks, we will be putting out a lot of information about our educational system, to educate our communities on issues of certification, on issues of different access to knowledge. We will be addressing the issues of mission schools. We have lived in a society where people have sold their birthright in exchange for security, in exchange for hopelessness. Fear has made people to give up their liberty and their security and the right to make decisions for themselves. That is what we have seen with enablers. That is what we have seen with different institutions run by different churches. In exchange for security, they give up their independence to operate as non-political agencies. We are aware of schools that are still under the churches, that are still running on Cameroon's curriculum of education, under Cameroon's educational system. This has to come to an end. We are also aware of drivers still violating the no number CEMAC number plate in AMBAZONIA. If independence must mean independence, we must gradually begin to get rid of all those cleavages, those links that have made us perpetual slaves under Cameroon's authority. You cannot hold Cameroon accountable. When we started the campaign against Isaac, we got many people fighting. Oh, you want to get rid of Isaac? It means people are going to die of trash in the city. It has not turned out to be true. We argued then that you cannot have foreign companies, removing trash from our cities and taking all the profits back into foreign countries without reinvestment into our communities. The local companies, individuals can come together and set up these companies so that they can remove this trash and they are able to gain access to employment. They are able to feed their own children. And that has come to be true. In the 21st century, we cannot have a situation where Ambazonian companies cannot exist because they cannot compete with well-financed foreign companies whose only interest in our land is profit making. They don't care about the fabric of our society. They don't care about the cohesion within our society. They don't care about communities. They don't care about education. They don't care about retraining. All they are interested in is profit. Local companies will be concerned with community development. They will be concerned with local investment. They will be concerned with using the profit they have made to pay these fees of their children to make sure they can expand their businesses, employ more people. We must change our mindset if we want to be human beings. We cannot live like animals, totally dependent on enemies that have fed us with fabricated history, intoxicated us with lies, brutalized us when we become wise. We must change that just to be human. I know it's difficult. I know it's extremely very tough. I cannot promise you it's going to be easy in the next 1 year. But I can assure you it's going to come to an end if we don't give up. If we rededicate, we recommit to the struggle that so many have lost their lives engaging in. As you can see in this video running on the screen, we can do farming. Now, the produces you make down there can be sold anywhere because of the internet. You can organize yourselves within communities. You cannot organize yourselves within the PTAs. You erect schools that you don't own. That is the system the enemy put in place. They come and put 4 walls, hand over the responsibility to you, but you are not a shareholder. You are simply an investor. You reap no dividend. With Ambazonia, we alter it completely. Everything is owned by the community. When the federal government will exist, the federal government will be a shareholder in state and community activities. So my fellow Ambazonians, we are in a good place in our struggle, internationally too. There are a lot of activities. Countries are reassessing their approach to the Ambazonian question. They are having more understanding on the foundation of our resistance. They are having more understanding on the difficulties in trying to perpetuate a myth that Cameroon was one, including Amazonia. As we have said, there is no precedence, none. There is no model that you can tap from to establish a state of majority Francophone with minority Anglophone to coexist. It doesn't exist. Ambazonia is an independent state, and countries must factor this fact in policy development, in articulation of those policies, and in dealing with any issues revolving around this conflict. Whether you are an international humanitarian organization working in Ambazonia, you must know Ambazonia is an independent state, a state whose independence was robbed from it through violence, has been maintained through violence, and its people have risen up to challenge that state and have taken control of their destiny. You must recognize their effort and you must support them in being the center and anchor of certainty, predictability, and hope in the Gulf of Guinea. We are aware that Mr. Frundi's family is working with the regime of occupation to orchestrate some charade within Mezam because of the demise of Mr. Frundi. I know I have spoken about this in an initial statement. And I know sometimes we come from the background that, well, we should let things go, we should forgive and forget. Is the foundation of our existence. That I understand. And sometimes I understand it may be too hard to talk about the death in the way I do, especially about a man who has seen his own share of pain. What we must know is that the Bible says, if you knock, the door shall be open. If you ask, you shall receive. And those who ask for forgiveness are forgiven. In 1995, despite the mistakes of Pa Jongo Foncha, Pa Muna was one of the greatest traitors we have had in Ambazonia, Solomon Tandeng Muna. Not only against La République, working with La République and making sure that Ambazonia remains a slave, but making sure that he can curtail the efforts of those who could secure something for Ambazonia. Esti Muna integrated himself within Cameroon for his own political advantage against anything that could work for Ambazonia. I've known Pa Muna since when I was in GS Ngembo. I was close to the Muna family. We went into his compound there many times. Even in Ngembo, the only third area of Ngembo then, I don't know how it is today, was the junction from Pa Muna's house right into his compound. When he lost his wife, we were all there. We have been a people who forgive those who make mistakes when they recognize that they have made mistakes. 1995, I was at the Mongo Bridge when they walked across Pa Foncha, Pa Muna and the others, Pa Litumbe, late Dr. Yombang and others. We were on the other side with a flag. They walked across and we all drove to Boya. We met at Pa Foncha's house when we talked about our program. We listened to Pa Foncha talked about the errors they committed. We listen sometimes, Pa Muna exclaim, what kind of ndon is this? By the very fact that they were able to go to the United Nations to petition, travel from the UN to London to issue the London communique that terminated the reasonable period given La République, and to fly into Douala, conclave at Pa Yombang's house and then later at Pa Feko's house, drove to the Mongo, stop on the other side, walk into Ambazonia on foot, are signs that they recognize the mistakes they made. And they did everything before they left to alter the lives of our people. So we believe in forgiving people who ask for forgiveness, who take steps that you can see reasonably and honestly that the steps they are taking, they might not utter and ask for forgiveness, but the steps they are taking is a sign that they recognize that they made some errors. Do I think we should still hold the Munas and the Funchas accountable? I believe in accountability, yes. We're forgiving them, but we'll still hold them accountable. Accountability is not to punish anybody, it's closure. So if your neighbor kills your child and comes down, goes down on the knees and forgive, please mama, please daddy, forgive me, and you put your hand on the head and say you are forgiven, it will be nice for that neighbor to come in one day and say, this is what happened. This is why I killed your child. That is what they call accountability for purposes of closure. Ambazonians are in pain. You are walking dead. Your soul is in turmoil because you don't know who to believe in. All those you put your trust in have failed you. All those you believe will stand for you betrayed you. You've lost faith. And they are just going as though nothing happened. They are just moving. They are building mansions. They are flying in planes. They are dancing with enemies. They don't care. And so the stance we take is not out of hate. It's out of experience. And that some people take us for granted because they know you will forgive, you will forget. There is nothing you can do to them. They walk on your grave. They walk on our dead bodies. They don't care. I was a vanguard 1991 at Bianche. I slept at John Fundi's compound for close to a month. I was the guy that began the falling down of trees to block the roads that Fundi should not be taken, and Satmokom. I was there. We were all every night after Libyan Unity Hotel. We dug the first trench to cut that road to stop Mr. Bia from taking this man to Yaoundé. I had passed my advanced level. I stayed. I did not, never applied to enroll in Yaoundé. I believed very much that we were going to alter the destiny of our people. I was just lucky that the next year, after our resistance, Boya was set up. And I went and dropped my application and became one of the first direct intake in Boya. When the SDF was launched, 6 people died. They have never received justice. Fundi never forced the man who killed them to issue an apology. Even when we were protesting against government delegates, lockdowns, everything, Yaoundé brought in helicopters. I have friends who don't have hands. There is one day in Bui, both hands are chopped off. He's a farmer. We never sought justice for him. Of course, we did not expect Mr. Fundi to perform miracles, but we expected effort. That a political leader that rallied millions and promised them that if they sacrifice, if they stuck together, they will have freedom, and the conditions within which all of them can prosper will be established, cannot renege on those promises and became the only one who became enriched, and now was in bed with the murderer that has caused the death of millions of our people. It's a sacrilege. It's a sacrilege, an attack on the mourners, those who have died, those who have sacrificed, to be in bed with one of the greatest murderers in the continent, Mr. Bia. It's a sacrilege. Sometimes, under normal political circumstances, especially under democracies, even after having gone through such pains, you will make some hard political compromises, knowing fully well that the enemy that has caused so much pain to your people will meet you halfway. It begins with a statement of accountability, with a statement of remorse, even with an apology for the pain that their actions or their leadership caused on millions of people, on businesses, on the lives of children who lost a year of education through civil disobediences, people who lost businesses because they were asked not to pay taxes, and when the enemy came back, they asked them for an amount they could not pay and they folded in. You would expect that enemy to take some steps towards you, and not you going the full 100%, meeting the enemy, integrating within the enemy, undermining the same foundation upon which people resisted, becoming a laughing stock, asking to be appointed, going into fake election where you legitimate the enemy because you want to collect huge sums of money, creating opportunities for parliamentarians who enrich themselves, legitimize the system at the detriment of the ordinary masses. The same people who fought for you, died for you, went to jail for you, sacrificed every businesses for you, sacrificed education for you. The character of a leader who never blinks is that even if you don't succeed in providing to the people what you promise, is that you never fall into the arms of the enemy that give your people so much pain. We hold nothing against anyone who has an opinion about our struggle. I do not care if you do not believe in Ambazonians' independence. What I care about is when you enable the perpetrators of genocide through your actions, through your words. When you trivialize the essence for which our people fight. When you doctor the reasons why we should not be free. That is my point. You can believe in Cameroon, that's up to you. But if your believing in Cameroon is based on a false hope to keep Ambazonia as a slave, we will find you to the gates of hell. You can celebrate Cameroon if you want, it's up to you. But it shall never be at the expense of Ambazonia. It is a shame that adults, men, able-bodied men, people with wit, with some level of intellectualism, are able to reduce themselves to such cacophonies just for the purpose of survival. What has John Frundi left behind as a legacy? What did Solomon Tandem Mona leave behind as a legacy? What are the businesses that he left behind that is employing thousands of Amazonians? What did Achidachu leave behind? Apart from the fact that their treachery benefited their immediate families that have continued to perpetuate the treason against you. Our fight is just. Our fight is not against those who don't believe in us. We hold nothing against you if you don't share in our dream. But if you stand on the way to our dream, considering what we have gone through for 62 years, I can assure you You will go down or we will go down. We are not afraid to lose. We've been on the losing side since we were born. Every one step we take forward is a victory for us. It's a victory for our people. It's a victory for a people who have never known victory since they were born. Anyone on our way, we will take you down. Even in his death, they are trying to mock Ambazonia. They want to use the enemy to parade him the same way they planted La République flags in the compound of Atia. I have the videos. Inside Atia's house, I have the videos. And I can assure you people, except Dr. CHO AYABA will be murdered, you will not go free. There will be accountability for those people that are in jail, who have been murdered, who have lost everything. We are a tolerant people. We believe in pluralism in opinions. What we reject is trivialization, doctoring history for your personal profit. You can be in Yaoundé, you can be in Douala and make your life. But because of the fear of the regime or because of the hate of Ambazonia, you cannot undermine the sacrifices of men who have not gone to school, who have carried rifles, people who are putting in their own effort without pay to make sure we can reverse the pain that we've gone through since we were born. It's a sacrilege to the pain that our people have gone through. We looked up to Frundi with so much hope. We defended him with so much pride. We paid homage to him. We fought for him. We defended him. I took missions that would have killed me for John Frundi. I entered Yaoundé with the death chair on a military mission on the 11th of October 1997 with 5 men into Yaoundé to take down the printing press to stop elections on their call. So many things. We were prepared to go to every length for him, for what he stood for. He betrayed us. He went into bed with the enemy. And I see some political charlatans calling themselves Ambazonian leaders, hailing him. Political platitude. You think that you are an electioneering, playing the usual politics that you people have played in this struggle. Thinking that you are in an election process. Nyamfukas. My people, there will be accountability. We'll leave forgiveness to God. We have gone through so much pain that people have taken us for granted. Neighbors deceive you, friends manipulate you, betray you. It's a society of traitors, betrayers. Nobody is held accountable. Nothing happens. There is no court system. There's no customary institution. The traitors are the heroes. Money doublers are the heroes. Fake people are the heroes. We've grown up in society where heroes are all thieves. We were taught to murder patriots. No more. Our heroes are the generals on the ground, the commanders fighting, the mamas and the papas on Mondays who lock down. We will not build a country where people die in pain because of those who betrayed us. We will hold them accountable, including myself. If I've committed any error on the appointed day, you will bring it. I should be held accountable. Almighty, please day. Let the resistance continue, my people. There is hope. There is hope. Our forces are getting stronger, more sophisticated. We are putting more pain on the enemy. Let's resource our forces, give them what they require to end the tyranny that has been a portion of your misery since you were born. The kind of society we promise to establish is one you will be proud of. And that begins from now. God bless Ambazonia. Good night.